Copenhagen. How are you all? Just one good. Everyone else needs coffee. Thank you so much, Preben, for that great introduction. I am, as he said, fascinated by user experience. I'm aware I'm in a room of people who have that straight in their crosshairs. So let me get into it. 2025, the year that the beta generation join us for the first time. Never before have we had 7 generations of consumer users to satisfy. Every piece of code you write today is aimed at one of these people, if not all of these people. So we have everything from the traditionalists who were born after World War II into the Great Depression, and they grew up in a very manual world, a world of newspapers and typewriters, and everything was done manually. And then that gave way to the boomer generation, and the boomer generation came of age during the Vietnam War, civil rights movements. And again, they were an analog generation. It was all rotary telephones, and it was vinyl. And so at the beginning of kind of technology affecting productivity. And then, of course, we gave way to Gen X. And Gen X came of age during the Watergate scandal, MTV culture. And we were the first low-tech generation. It was Walkman, it was joystick, it was console, it was the beginning of the technology generation revolution. And then that gave way to the millennial generation, the age of the internet, a generation that came of age into the workplace post 9/11. And they were, of course, the first digital generation. It was iPod, iPad, iTouch. And the beginning of the digital revolution, which then gave way, of course, to the next generation. Gen Z came of age during the climate change crisis. They were the app-based generation. Snapchat, TikTok, everything through apps. And then, of course, that gave way to Gen Alpha. Gen Alpha came of age during a global pandemic. And they've watched the geopolitical uncertainty of the world. And they are a streaming generation. Everything is VR, AR, low-level AI, Alexa, Siri. And now we have, of course, Generation Beta, who will grow up in an AI, humanoid robotics, quantum computing world. And every one of those generations, 15 years each one of those has, they now look at the world in different ways, they consume product in different ways, and they want different things. And so as software developers, of course, their needs accelerate again and again and again. And the old ways of working don't really work for them. Like, this is a Gen Z kid being shown a cassette tape for the first time.
Give me a demonstration on how to listen to a tape.
How does this work?
Oz, where do you put the headphones?
In there. No, you put it into a TV.
Are you getting any music out of it, Oz?
No.
I'm just getting rattles.
You're just getting rattles?
Yeah, how do you turn it on?
Do you think it needs batteries?
Yeah. You plug it into like this, so basically somehow it plugs into like the TV and you have to watch it through there.
It's my favorite part. He wanted to be virtual reality.
Is there an AUX cable?
And I had the same experience recently. I have a 19-year-old son, and about 2 years ago he was writing an essay on his laptop. He's writing a history essay. And he asked me a question that I think as a group of software developers you're really going to appreciate. He turned to me middle of the way through his essay, and he said, "Dad, why is the save icon a microwave over a television?" I thought, what? And I started laughing at him, of course. And then I realized, hang on, whose problem is this? Because he's not saving to one of those. He doesn't know what that is. He's never held one in his hand. His machine doesn't take one. He's saving to the cloud. So why isn't the icon in the software package a cloud with an arrow? Like, it's our problem. We're the ones stuck in the past. We're the ones stuck showing a user technology that's no longer relevant. And if you take that as a metaphor and you stretch that across the industry, that's the problem of the generational accelerations. The users of tomorrow demand much more than we are maybe giving them. And so this idea of old ways don't open any new doors for us in our industry is very, very true. This is Lauren Bacall. She was a famous Hollywood actress, married to Humphrey Bogart. She has this wonderful quote: "Standing still is the fastest way to move backwards in a rapidly changing world." And you can put that in your pocket as a developer yourself today. If you continue to do the same thing you've always done within the 4 walls of your little world, and forget that the world outside of your office is changing so fast. You think you're keeping up by doing the same thing, but you're actually moving backwards because the world around you is at pace. I mean, today, if you look out your window, there's a robot cutting your lawn. Inside your home, there's a robot vacuuming your house. And very soon, there'll be humanoid robotics in warehouses, retail, hospitality, and homes. You know, I was in Beverly Hills recently doing a gig, and I spent 3 days moving around the city in an autonomous vehicle. You know, those days of science fiction are gone. They are now practically used every day. And so the world is changing. I mean, the largest object ever shot into space came home and docked itself with 2 little chopsticks. You know, looking at the kind of pace of acceleration, we're at a point now where cancer tumors can be sequenced right down to the cellular level because of AI, where you in labs growing meats will be someday grow human organs, new sources of energy being explored, new sources of space exploration. You know, it's all changing. And so we'd be really stupid to assume that what we do is going to stay the same. You know, and in fact, we're at the sharp edge of change in terms of technology. So why would the way we approach the business problem, the way we approach the user problem, why would that stay the same while everything else around us is changing? I moved house recently, speaking of hardware and software. I opened up the drawer. You know the drawer we all have in our kitchens, the drawer of chaos. Cables and controls for things you don't even know what they... And out came this, my Garmin. Had lived in the drawer for 15 years, like Harry Potter. And I thought, like, what do I do with this? You know, you're doing that keep it charity shop, sell it pile. And so I threw it in the bin because nobody would buy a Garmin, no one would use a Garmin, no one has used a Garmin for 15 years. Because when you think about the way software eats the world, this is one app, it's one tile, that sits on everybody's phone in this room. Now that one tile killed an industry. Within 18 months of its launch, 85% of the market capitalization, the value of the GPS industry was wiped away. Literally, one app just killed an industry. And that's the world we live in today. This is one of my favorites. This is UberFix again, just a software add-on. It's an add-on to the Uber app under test in the States, in 5 test cities. Because the majority of breakdowns, 75, 80% of all breakdowns in US cities are one of these 4 problems: flat tire, flat battery, low oil, low gas. So what they did is they trained the Uber drivers in those 5 test cities how to jump a car, how to change a tire, and they all carry spare oil and spare gas in their trunk now. So now you have a choice as a consumer. If you break down in Boston or Washington, you can wait the 1 hour that it takes for a truck to get to you, or you can take out your phone, hit UberFix, and a little piece of software will deliver an Uber driver to you within 4 minutes. What do you pick as a consumer? Obviously, you pick the shortest route. And what I love about this example of disruption in the world we live in is that there's probably a guy or a woman in Boston right now who owns 40 trucks, a business of $2 million a year, and has no idea this is coming. No idea that in 1 year's time their business and assets will be worth 0. This is the world that we live in, the way software eats the world. And so, if you look at the old ways and the new ways for many industries, this is the hospitality industry, this is the old way, the hotel, this is the new way, Airbnb. Again, look at the relevance in market capitalization. So the Hilton's over 100 years old and worth about, give or take, $60 billion. Airbnb is just a teenager and it's worth more. Because relevance is important. We're all in a race for relevance with our users. Our users, in fact, are sometimes ahead of where we are in terms of what they need and expect and want from us. And I find that this graphic is probably one of the best I'll show you today. That's you there at the end of the plank on your laptop, coding away. And those people at the other end are the users demanding from you. And can you see what's going to happen if one by one, every industry, they start to step off the plank and get their needs met in a different way? You can see how precarious it is for us in every industry. Understanding what the user wants is core. As Preben said, AI can help us code, but ultimately what the coding is for, the user and what they expect from us, that has to be our core objective at all times. And what do they want? What do users want? Well, firstly, of course, they want convenience. This is a societal norm today. These cats are your users today. 1 click, 1 swipe, I get what I want. This is the whole, everybody in this room is the same. I want something, I click the button, I get it. And I want it to work first time. I want it to work every time. I want it to be frictionless. I want it to be fast. I don't want any difficulty. And if something gets in their way as a user, they will go around you. They'll go around the software. They'll find an easier way. They'll make their own solution. Watch this great cat thinks I could do. Yeah. And so that's your user today. They'll find their way. I call them the dancing dots consumer today. It's come on, come on, come on. Give me the thing. Where's the thing? Come on, come on. And we had this a couple of years ago. This was the Amazon blimp. It's like the Death Star for retail. Like it comes into your local town and all the drones come out and deliver all the things. And so this was a prank video by a Japanese artist. And when it went viral, it was really interesting because it went viral all over the world within 2 days. And all the kind of boomers and the Gen Xers looked at the video and thought, oh, that's a funny joke. But all the millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha consumers went, yeah, when is that coming? That's kind of normal. I'd like that. That's convenient because it's fast. I want everything. And we grew up in a world, of course, of Amazon Prime, of everyday delivery, same-day delivery. In fact, there's a product in the US called Amazon Instant Lockers that are on US campuses. And for the top 100 items that they sell, whatever you order will be in your locker within 3 minutes of ordering. 3 minutes. We're breeding a generation of people who can get what they want within 3 minutes. It just depends on how far you live from the locker on campus. Now, top 100 items for students, I don't know what they are. Condoms and spaghetti, I'm guessing. I don't know. But the idea here is like we're a whole generation of rook assaults. I want it and I want it now, Daddy. And so this is the reality, convenience. And then also, interestingly, mixing with that is authenticity. People really want real today. Some of the biggest brands I work with all over the world are struggling with connection, with user, consumer connection. So brands like McDonald's, Starbucks, they're commoditized. There's no real experience anymore. People want an experience from everything they interact with. So you ask yourself, what experience are we giving them through the coding you're giving? Because if you look at food, no experience happens here. But every single market I travel to in the world, the street food movement is booming. And why is that? Everyone loves the idea that the guy, gave up his job in Deloitte Touche, grew a beard, and now sells falafels from a van. It's like living the dream. That's authentic. It's real. It's genuine. And again, here's two coffee shops, one owned by Coca-Cola and the other owned by two brothers with tattoos and piercings. People have voted with their feet. They want real. They want authentic. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, what people really want in life in general is connection. And this is where the user connection is really important. Who is the user? User experience, user connection. And let's look at a case study of disconnection. You all remember this. 5 years ago, we had an interesting social experiment called a global pandemic, and we all experienced disconnection. The streets emptied. People were terrified. These are Portuguese people going shopping in the first... We all forget how scary it was that first week. That first week where we thought it was the zombie apocalypse. It was like, oh... And then we were all told to work from home. Working from home was great. If you didn't have kids, if you had kids, it was a whole other shit show. So we all got used to it. But the point about the disconnection was really interesting. We felt what it was like to be disconnected from society, from friends, from family, from colleagues. And in that is a finding. There's actually a great book you should all read called The Good Life. It's by a guy called Marty, or by Waldinger. Now, he's done the longest ever study on human happiness in Harvard. It's gone for 80 years, tracked the same people through their whole life, asking them what makes you happy, quantitatively, qualitatively. And do you know what the answer is? The answer isn't wealth. Like, you can make more money, but it's not going to make you happier. And it's not even health, actually. You can actually be terminally ill and be quite happy. The answer is connection, is relationships. The quality of your relationships, not the quantity, the quality of your relationships with friends, with family, with colleagues will dictate how happy you are in the world. And it's no different from our users. And lots of brands are starting to look at connection in different ways. This is a Dutch retailer called Jumbo, and they were looking at loneliness data in their society. And they realized that many of their older customers, when they come into the supermarket, the only social interaction they may have in that day is that conversation. Isn't that really sad? That the only human interaction they may have is in the supermarket that day. So they launched what they called the chat checkout in 5 test stores, and they trained the cashier to scan the items really slowly. And there would be a conversation, a 5-minute chat, And it was lovely. And the cashier line was longer for that checkout than any other checkout. The test went so successful, they rolled it out across all 280 stores because connection is important, as is purpose. I love this one. This is the restaurant of mistaken orders in Tokyo, where all the wait staff have dementia. Because it's been proven that by giving people with early onset dementia a job, purpose, it slows down the disease. Now, will you get what you ordered? No. No. I'll be honest, you may get no food at all. But that's not the point. The point is purpose, connection. And these are the new values that are really important for our modern consumer and user. And so connection is everything. And so really when it comes back to when you're sitting down at your desk writing code, in your mind you have to really be thinking about, like, what is this user experiencing? And what do they need? Because the code is only really there to give them what they need. So what do consumers value? What do the users of today and the users of tomorrow value? Well, let me set out kind of 4 pillars that I think you should be looking at. The first one, and let me introduce you to the concept, is the blue dot. And let me explain what I mean by that blue dot consumer. Preben talked about old technology being less productive. Do you remember these? We called them maps. Remember them? They were great. We used to drive our car with these. When you think about it, driving a car using one of these really is very, very difficult. They cause many divorces. My own included, I'll be honest. That's not a joke. This is a map of France. So to use this, the first thing you had to do as the user, of course, was know where you are. Like, you have to know where you are on this map. So, okay, I'm living in this little village, okay? And now you wanted to go to Paris. Well, you've got to know where Paris is, or Bordeaux. You have to know all the information. You have to know where you are. You have to know where you're going. And then once you had those 2 points, you again had to do all the work. You had to work out the navigation route. Because there's hundreds of navigation routes between A and B, which looks the most efficient, which is the one that I want to use today. And so you did all the work. You grew up understanding that the world is a big, big place. And you, as a user, are a small part of it, maybe an inconsequential part of it. And that's how most people in this room grew up, in this world. But that is the old world, because let me introduce you to what we call the blue dot consumer. Because the blue dot consumer, holding on to that map metaphor, is the world. They don't grow up inside a world. They are at the center of their own world at all times. If they take a step left, they expect your brand, your business to take a step left with them. The frame of reference changed. And this is really interesting when you think about software development, because are we developing for the client, but the client has a user, and who's the user? Because if you put the user at the center, sometimes things shift. And the people that have developed blue dot products are interesting. So Uber is a blue dot product. You stay where you are, we bring the car to you. That was a revolution in terms of how the mobility industry worked. Previously, we had to go out in the street and do all the work and try and get the car. Now it comes to us. My kids think it's hilarious the way we used to rent movies. It's like, oh, tell me the story again, Granddad. Like, we'd go down to the store and you'd walk around and you'd look for the movie. The movie you wanted was never on the shelf. And then you'd go up to the counter and you'd say, hey, do you have Die Hard 2? And the guy would go, no, sorry, that's out. And that was it. You went home with some other shitty movie instead. Like, imagine if you went on to Disney Plus or Netflix tonight and you wanted to watch your favorite movie or series and it said, no, sorry, someone in Antwerp is watching that. What? We just wouldn't accept it. And then everything shifted in terms of, like, even sociological things like dating. You went to a bar, a restaurant, you had a few beers, you caught their eye across the room. You had another few beers, and they looked better then. That's the way dating works. That was the old way. Again, you were involved, you did all the work. But today, you sit on your ass, you sit on the couch, swipey, swipey. It all just comes to you. In fact, you can buy one of these. This is technology at work, productivity. There's always a better productivity solution in terms of tech. You can just plug it in and it'll do all the work for you. Look at that, it's amazing. You can all buy one later. But every industry is changing from a technology point. If you look at this blue dot idea, like fuel retailing, we've all been driving our cars onto forecourts for decades. Nothing of value happens here for a consumer. It's a tax on your time. It's dirty, it's smelly. So, okay, fine, perfect. Let's blue dot that business. You go to work, you lock your doors of your car, open your gas flap, order a full tank of gasoline on booster, and while you're at work, the truck comes to you. Their gasoline is cheaper than everyone else's gasoline because they do not own any real estate, the most expensive part of fuel retailing. So when you make it all around the user and the consumer, it's amazing. This is the Robomart. This is like if Spar and Uber had a love child. Like the convenience store comes to you in West Hollywood. Now, this is just a test. She probably just paid $75 for that one apple. But the idea here is right. The idea is, make it all around the user. So like, why would you go to a supermarket when the supermarket can come to you? Why would you go to a restaurant when the restaurant can come to you? Why would you go to a doctor when the doctor can come to you? Why would you go to an optician's when you can just order those online? Why would you go to a dentist to get your teeth whitened when they can just send it in the post? All these direct-to-consumer models have changed, not because DTC is interesting, it's because it's the blue dot. Remember those cats? I want it to me, I want it easy. So anything that makes it difficult is going to be avoided by that new user. And so when we're doing our work, it's an interesting idea to put a filter on that and say, well, are we making it about the user? Like, are we making it about us? Are we back to that floppy disk icon? Because if we were making it about the user, my son wouldn't have seen that floppy disk icon. He'd have seen the cloud icon. And this is an interesting shift in mindset. Make it about them. And then when you focus on solutions, it's also quite interesting. For instance, nobody in this world needs a drill. Nobody. Nobody needs a drill. What you need is a hole. That's what you need. In fact, not even a hole. What you need is to hang up a picture or put up a shelf. That's the difference between focusing on product and focusing on solution. So don't focus on software solutions, which is what many of us do. Focus on user solutions. What is the user solution here? And you work backwards from that to the software solution. You don't lead into the market with the software solution. And so many software clients I have all over the world do that. They go to market saying, look at this box. Inside this box is my shiny software solution. That's pointless unless it plugs straight into a user solution that we need. So the user focus is key. And the interesting thing about that blue dot metaphor also is the personal nature of it. So you don't open Google Maps and follow someone else's blue dot around, do you? Well, maybe you do. It's called stalking. But it would be pointless because you would end up at their destination, not your destination. And there's no point in being at their destination, is there? So it's all around you and your experiences. Let me tell you a story. I was in Bogota recently at a conference, and I walked into this hotel. I've never been there before. They have none of my data. I am a virgin customer to this hotel, the Park 101. And I walk into the suite, and here's what meets me in the room. They've personalized a bottle of their local club beer. They've personalized a bottle of water. They've personalized a little basket of candies. I'm thinking like, ooh, I feel like a rock star. My God, I've just become Brad Pitt. And then you go, and then I ordered some room service, and they gave me some complimentary cheese into which they had put my logo. I thought, ooh, okay, it's getting a bit stalkerish now. But I remember I left that hotel, did the performance, flew straight to, I think it was Texas, did another performance, went to another hotel. I can't tell you the name of the hotel. See, there you go. Nothing stood out. Maybe a Marriott, maybe a Hilton, I don't know. But I do remember the way I felt when I went into that second hotel. I felt so angry that the water said Evian. I thought, oh, crappy hotel, haven't even put my name on the water. And this is the moment where you realize you want it to be about you. And hotels struggle. Business travelers find all hotels quite soulless. And we were doing some work with the Hilton on this about how you could make someone own the room a little bit better. How could it be a personal experience? So in developing the Hilton Honors app, have a look at this.
How about a room near the pool?
You're the one that likes to swim, not me.
I know, but it'll remind you of me.
You're right. That's the room for me.
With the Hilton Honors app, you can choose the room that's right for you.
It's like we've been choosing our seats on a plane, our seats at the theater for years. Why can't you choose your hotel room? It gives you psychological ownership of the room before you even get to the hotel then. And then they went one step further with the key.
I gave you the key when we were leaving the room.
I gave it to you at the pool.
Did he just use his phone?
He just...
Like bleep bleep?
Open your door with digital key, only on the Hilton Honors app.
Bleep bleep?
Bleep. And by the way, it doesn't work that fast. I've tried that. If you do it that fast, your nose just hits the door really hard. But the idea here, again, technology, putting you at the center, it's all about your room and your phone and your key, and it's all about you. We need to make it all about the user. And when you do, the users appreciate that. Look at the body language here of this little small coffee shop that one day laid a red carpet for their consumers, just as a joke here. But look at the body response. It's like, yes, you are lucky to have me as a customer. I am a VIP. And this is the way we need to treat our users, because our users are everything. Without the users, we don't even have an industry. And so look at their reactions when you make it about them. They're like, yes, yes, girl, I am famous. And so what does that mean? Like if you take that blue dot piece away with you, you make everything about them. Everything. You put the people first, the user first, not the product, not the software solution. You connect with them personally. You make it personal, which is really important, that they feel it's all about them. And you make them feeling special. So important. That's what all of your clients who come to us are looking for. They're looking to make their consumer, their customer feel special. It's our job to make that happen. And software runs the world today, so everything we do helps the customer and user feel special. Now, the reason this becomes super important is because the expectant nature, the second one I wanted to talk about, of society today. This is a brand ladder. I've adapted it from a guy called Martin Numer, but added a few extra bits. Like a ladder to engagement for your users. So let's start at the bottom there, dissatisfaction. What's that? That's when you don't meet their expectations. And that's not a good place, of course. My sister went online the other day and bought this cute Scandinavian top. That's what she expected to get. What she got was a winter breast warmer. So that's what dissatisfaction looks like. It's not great. We do it in technology also to our consumers. These are, you've all seen these all over the world. These are the McDonald's kiosks, order kiosks. There because of labor productivity issues. But actually, if you think about it, it takes 2 minutes and 13 presses of that screen to order a Big Mac, fries, and Coke. The most standard thing in McDonald's. 13 presses, 2 minutes, which is not fast food at all. It's a long time. It took me 5 seconds at the counter to say, hello, can I have a Big Mac, fries, and Coke, please? And so this is one of the problems. Sometimes technology can actually dissatisfy. It can slow down the user experience. You've got to be careful. But let's assume we have the satisfaction layer, that we are giving the customer what they expect. Now remember, the definition of satisfaction is when the customer experience matches their expectation. That's all that is. Experience equals expectation. Now we measure that in NPS scores and satisfaction tracking, and we think we're great when we get high scores. All you've done is given them what they expected to get. The problem is the customer and the user keeps climbing the ladder of expectation. It's like those diving boards. You know those diving boards? There's the low one, the middle one, and the terrifying high one. Now that's where all our users are. The problem with being up that high is if anything goes wrong, yeah, you all felt that. And that's the problem. The users are so high in terms of their expectation. We need to be at level, the level of delight at all times. Like if we're not delighting our customer, if we're not giving them more than they expect, then somebody else will. Now, what does that look like? This is Leonardo Bernardo, who's a pediatrician in Brazil. And every little kid that wakes up after surgery wakes up to a surprise bandage that he's drawn. He had a little chat to them beforehand. He's learned about their favorite character. And he spends 5 extra minutes at the end of every surgery doing this. That's someone who understands delight, who understands going beyond expectation. But that's not even his pièce de résistance. The best thing he does is how he brings them to surgery. He spends his own money and he buys them little superhero costumes. Batman, Spider-Man, Superman. And he flies them into surgery because he dissolves the pain point, terrifying for a kid, but also for the parent, giving their kid over for surgery, for anesthesia. And by doing this, he puts a smile on the faces of the nursing staff, of the theater staff, of the child, of the parents. He understands connection. He understands putting the user at the center, not the process, not the surgery, put the user at the center. And there's loads of stories around this. And what's interesting is when you start putting the user at the center, the user then starts talking about your brand and being the best advocate for you. So let me tell you a story about Virgin Atlantic. There was this family emigrating from the UK to the US, and they arrived at the airport, and they were checking in at the counter. And the lady who's checking them in starts laughing because behind the parents, the little boy is holding a goldfish in a plastic bag. And she thinks, well, like, there's more than 100 mils of liquid in that bag. and you don't get to bring live animals to America. It's not the way it works. And so she says, I'm sorry, you can't bring the fish on board. And the little boy starts roaring, crying, because he was leaving his friends and his school, his house and his hobbies, and he had to bring his fish to me. Snot and tears. And quick as a flash, she said, no, honey, I'm sorry. You don't understand. What I mean is you can't bring the fish on board. You got to give him to me, sweetheart. He's got to travel with all the other VIP goldfish that are traveling today on the plane. There's a special section, a tank on the plane just for fish. So the little boy hands over his fish, dries his eyes, and so she prints out the boarding cards and gives them to the parents, who wink at her and think, thank you so much. And they usher the kid through security thinking, okay, that's the end of that. Isn't she great? But that wasn't the end of that. Because once the parents were gone, she took out her phone and she started taking some pictures of the fish. And she sent those pictures to her colleague in Atlanta, who left her workstation, drove to the local pet shop, bought an identical-looking goldfish. And 10 hours later, when that little boy's plane landed in America, she was standing at the top of the ramp and he took his fish to America. Now, that's an amazing story that brings the Virgin brand to life, that empowers the employees. They didn't have to call to Richard Branson and say, do you mind if I take an hour off to buy a fish? No, you live inside an organization that says if you see a user problem, you fix the user problem. You make it all around the customer. And if you keep doing that, you, of course, end up with an engaged, empowered customer. And that is a customer who sells your product for you. Harley-Davidson talk about the hundreds and thousands of sales reps they have on the road every weekend, because every single person riding a Harley is a sales rep for the brand. I was skiing a couple of years ago with my kids. We were sitting down for lunch, and this snowboarder dude sat at the table next to us. You know the type, helmet off, the dreads. And he had a big Red Bull tattoo across his neck. On his neck. I thought, wow, he must really love soft drinks. But no, it's not like Coca-Cola tattoo. It's a Red Bull tattoo. This is who I am. This is my tribe. This is who I run with. I am danger. It's really interesting. Like, if you think about these brands, these are brand logos that people have tattooed on their skin. How many people here have a GOTO tattoo on their ass? It's actually a tattooed chair outside at the break. You're going on a break. And so the idea here is, like, how can we get to the level of ownership where we put the user at the center? So the expectant nature here is about surpassing and I would say this to your client as well, whoever you're working for, you have to go beyond their expectation. Because if you're delivering what they asked you for, you don't do yourself any favors, do you? Because somebody else can do that. This is a real commoditization race. You have to go beyond expectations. Things like seamless and frictionless and on time, they're just hygiene factors now. We expect those things anyway. And think about appointing an excite and delight director in your business. Whether you're B2B, B2C, who is responsible for going beyond client expectations at all times? Because if nobody is, it won't happen. So think about that, both from the client and from the user perspective. Now, why are we doing all this? Because the world, of course, as I said at the beginning, has fundamentally changed. And you can't ignore the Phygital world that we now live in, half physical, half digital, this collision of new things from a tech point of view versus the old ways. So that connection piece I showed you earlier on now looks like this, really. It's not two hands. It's tech and it's human. And there's some really interesting stuff in the data. Looking at Starbucks recently, I was looking at some of the data for just beverages, right? Do you know what percentage of beverages today are ordered outside the store? So either on app or on delivered for home or click to collect. 70%. Only 30% of orders today are made physically in the store. And of course, if you went back 15 years ago, it would have been 100% of stores, in the store. So the digital world we live in has fundamentally changed how we interact with so many products and industries. And there's always been step changes. I mean, if you look at the hardware step changes, there's been, desktop to laptop to tablet to phone to watch to in-home. And even in how we connect, there was step changes. There was, dial-up modem, and there was broadband, and there was Wi-Fi and 5G. And every step that comes forms new connections for users and new connections for us in industry. And let's not forget how young some of this technology is. Like, this is Steve Jobs introducing Wi-Fi 25 years ago. 26 years ago. He showed the world Wi-Fi for the first time. So here he is, moving his laptop off the podium and still being on the internet. no cable, walking around. Then he changes the website from CNN to Disney. Listen to the crowd. They're losing their shit. Thinking, what kind of magic is this, Steve? How are you still on the internet? And then my favorite moment, where he takes no wires, it's not magic. Like, I think, oh my, that's only 25 years ago. And like, look how far we've come. And what's interesting about AI, and Preben mentioned it earlier on, is that unlike those things, which have all been step jumps, changes in hardware, changes in connection, AI is what we call a spring jump. It changes everything. It's not a step in the staircase. It's a leap of several steps for society, for work, for commerce. And what's interesting about this in terms of technology is one of the first things that's being pulled through by the consumers, by the users, faster than we even are pushing it. Because the person in there every day using ChatGPT and Gemini, and they're so far ahead of some companies. They're already using it in their lives. Because already, obviously, technology, every house looks like this, every relationship looks like this. We're already deeply buried in our devices at all time. We are a technologically driven user race. And so we're actually ahead of some of these brands that we're trying to, like, it's all around us. And so I sometimes think that in terms of digital strategy, we're only playing with one side of the cube, really, sometimes. Like a brand's digital strategy, they think they're doing great by solving one side, but the society is already way far ahead of them. And let's think about dimensional connectivity. Like one-dimensional connectivity was you were a consumer and you wanted to go to a bank or a hospital or a store, and that was it. It was really simple, the physical world. And if we take a video gaming metaphor, because you all, I'm sure you all game, you all know the video game, what would be one-dimensional connectivity? Well, it was this. This is one-dimensional connectivity. How many people, hands up, played this? How old are you? How old are you? It's your little white wheel. And we played it for hours, happy out. But obviously the modern consumer wouldn't play this. They think, what the? So we moved on to two-dimensional connectivity. And two-dimensional connectivity in the marketplace was you could have the physical and you could have the online version. So you could have retail, you could have healthcare, you could have financial services. We called it multi-channel first. We got sick of that. Then we called it omni-channel. It was all very exciting. But it was still two-dimensional connectivity. And what would that be in a game? Well, that was Pac-Man. It was better than Pong, but it's still two-dimensional. It's still just looking at it from above. Because, of course, where the consumer and the user is already today is three-dimensional connectivity. This is the way they connect with brands. They can go onto the website, they can go on to swipe up shopping, they can go on to AI-powered chatbot, they can go on to the physical store. There's so many points that they can interact with a given brand. So they're already in three-dimensional connectivity. They're already in Fortnite, in Call of Duty. They're already inside the game, playing through the character's eyes. They don't play Pac-Man. And this is the difference for branding. And the important thing to do with connectivity is getting and catching up, because the consumer's already heading into the Tesseract. Fourth dimension connectivity, a cube within a cube within a cube. The amount of nodes of connection that are going to be coming our way through AI and quantum computing is huge. So society is going to change forever. And some people, of course, worry. They worry that the robots are out to get us. The robots are coming for us. And to be fair, sometimes the robot is coming for you. They can see you. They're going to take you out. And Musk said last year, he reckoned that last year, that by this year, AI would be smarter than most humans. Now, see, they think they're smarter than AI back there. He didn't specify which humans it would be smarter than. And there are some humans that a pocket calculator would be smarter than, right? But what I'm fascinated by is the conversation that keeps happening around AI. And Preben mentioned this morning in his opening remarks. For all time, we have invented tools to conquer the world we live in. So if you go back to the day fire was discovered, right? You can imagine Trevor and Michael. Jesus, what have you done there, Trevor? I don't know, but look at this. I'm calling it fire. Jesus, great. And then you better be careful with that now. That's going to burn the world down. Yeah, you better put that out. Burn the world down. But we can't put the genie back in the bottle. When things are discovered that are ultimately going to change the world forever, you can't put it back in the bottle. And yes, there are people that use fire and burn down the world and use barbecues in the wrong place during the summer, of course. But for the majority of humanity, we use fire to cook, to warm ourselves, to tell stories, to share experiences. You'd be a fool to quash Trevor's discovery back then, wouldn't you? And it's the same thing for AI is coming to steal all our developer jobs. Oh, no. Now, we've heard that argument so many times in society. Back in the 1500s, all the monks that were busily copying out books by hand, that's how books were made. And then they were terrified because the printing press came along. And you know what they said? Hang on, that's going to steal our jobs. Yes, it is, because you're really slow. You can do 2 books a year, and this can do 20,000 in a day. And so, yeah, bye-bye. And we heard it again in the Industrial Revolution. In the Industrial Revolution, there was a little lady in a cottage weaving baskets. And then the Industrial Revolution came along, and she said, oh, I'll lose my job. Yes, because you can only make 7 baskets a week, and now we can make 500 a day. No, because productivity meant that the products were cheaper for everybody, so it was now baskets for everybody. And then computerization came along in the 70s. People said, I'll steal my job. Yeah, I will. Do you know, this is the FBI fingerprint repository before computerization. If a criminal was caught and got fingerprinted, someone had to go around and open all the drawers and check. Do you think he did it? I mean, no wonder nobody was ever caught. I mean, so computerization allowed us to do all these things much more productive. And so the same thing for AI will change every industry. It'll change the hospitality industry, how we do things in coffee shops and hotels. I mean, already you can see, like if you think about the hardware that we used to use, it was always novelty, wasn't it? It was like, oh, look, the sushi belt, and oh, look, a little cute robot delivering stuff. Fantastic. And then there's some connection moments, like this last one here is robots being used by people with paralysis. So they actually, again, back to the dementia example earlier on, they're given purpose. But actually, you're starting to see now everyday robotics in these kind of industries. Everyday robotics where, why would you ask a barista to make your coffee when, a robot can make your coffee the same way as a barista ever would? And so people are terrified in the hospitality industry. Oh my God, robotics is coming to steal our jobs. Yeah, it is. Because I don't want to wait 20 minutes for a coffee. I want it instantly. I'm a cat. Bing, bing, bing. And so if you look at the Hollywood writers' strike from a few years ago, terrified that their industry would be eaten alive by AI. Yes, it will. Absolutely. Because they knew what was coming. They saw Sora first. That was a couple of years ago. And you all remember Sora. We all remembered, okay, let's do a Western movie. Okay, for the opening sequence, we need a helicopter shot, drone shot of the whole Western. Okay, well, let's just type that in there. Historical footage of California, Western, and here you go. So to actually create this, to create that image, that video sequence, hang on, I want that to play, would take, it doesn't play, okay, would take maybe 3 months to build. And the same thing here with this, you can get really detailed and say, well, hang on, let's have a look at an embedded video. These videos aren't playing. Can you reset that for me at the back, please, AV? Thank you. And the whole point about video and AI is that it's going to eat the entertainment industry alive. And so the actors always thought, well, I'll be okay. I'll be fine. I'll be okay. Nothing will replace me as an actor. It'll be background stuff. But it was never background stuff. Hang on, we're trying to play these videos. Oh, none of my videos are playing. Can you reset that at the back, please? Can you do a whole reset on the whole presentation? Okay, I'll fill, don't worry. And the problem with industries that are terrified of technological progress is that they want to stick to the old ways. They want to stick to the paper map. They want to stick to the way they knew it. But the reality is they don't appreciate the way the technology would change their industry. And so, no, these aren't playing. The problem with the new way of working is that it's much cheaper, it's much more productive, and it's much faster, and it does people out of a job. And you can't put that genie back in the bottle. There's just no way of doing it. It can't be done. And so to connect in the new way is absolutely everything. So from your user perspective in this new Phygital world, you look at, well, what can AI do? Let me give you an example. Intermountain Health, big healthcare company in the States. They looked at the clinical interactions that they have. And there was a problem with the clinical interactions. When you go to see a doctor, you sit down and you're quite vulnerable. You've got this rash, this lump, and but the problem is they're listening to you, but they're also charting at the same time. They're, yeah, okay, right, yeah, interesting. And they're breaking eye contact all the time. And so they installed a very simple speech-to-chart system, listening AI system. And now what happens is the doctor has full eye contact with you for 15 minutes. Doesn't take any notes. And when you walk out, they just turn to their terminal, have a quick check, maybe edit, fine. Now, the increase in patient satisfaction scores is amazing, because for the first time ever, the patient feels really listened to by the doctor. The surprise was the employee experience scores also went through the roof, because for the first time, the employee really feels that they're doing this, what they got into medicine for. And so this is where AI starts to change. And the same thing, I think, in software. The code itself may be written by AI, but the user brief, the user experience, the client, it frees us up to do what we should have been doing all along, which is actually the piece around, okay, what is this to do? What is the software solution? What is the user solution? Code writing, we can kind of give to the AI partly. And freeing up humans to do what humans do best is great. And Previn said it in his opening remarks again on creativity. I love this example from Octopus Energy. And this is a really good example of putting the user at the center, of creativity, of merging tech and human. So Octopus Energy sell electricity and gas, commodity product, but they're quite strong in customer experience. And they had this problem when you called their inbound call center, they had about a 4 or 5 minute wait before the agent would pick up. Now, we all know how that feels, don't we? When you're on a call waiting, you go, oh, Jesus, come on. Every 10 seconds feels like a minute, it's not good. Or else they play you that awful music, it's awful. And so one of the executives had been reading an article around nostalgia, and he had discovered an interesting fact, and you can all check this after my speech. You can all Google it. The most powerful music you as an individual will ever hear is the soundtrack to the summer when you were aged 14. That long, hot summer of potential and possibility, of kissing Jessica or Robert behind the bike shed, sneaky joint, first beer, all those things. There's a soundtrack to that summer. And if you hear those songs, you'll be transported straight back to those hormones, that feeling, the hairs stand up on your neck. It's an enjoyable moment. And so what they did was a really simple focus on that, focus on nostalgia. And so when you call a call center, they of course harvest your phone number to pull up the account details for the agent, happens automatically. But then you've got that 4 minute wait to talk to the agent. So they went, you all know what's coming. They went one step further, they took the account number, they pulled the date of birth from the account, and then they sent that to their jukebox of 120 songs, and they played you a song from when you were aged 14 while you waited. So now instead of listening to the awful music, you're listening to Yaz and the Plastic Population, or whatever you're listening to, but everyone on hold is listening to different songs. Isn't that amazing? So simple. And now when you think about every bank, every insurance company could have done this for the last 20 years, but these were the first guys that thought about how can we take every point in the customer journey and make it about the customer. So this is the application, the creative application of technology to connect. And that's really what everyone's job in this room is. Our job is to use technology to connect with the user in a better way, to make them feel more special. And now, because of AI, we can do that at depth and scale. We never had those things before, depth and scale at the same time. So I really think that where we're heading to is, it's like a roller coaster. Okay, just excuse me for one moment. AV, can you reset the presentation? Because none of my videos are going to work from now on. So can you come out of that and go back into it? Do whatever you need to do. Otherwise, my audience aren't going to have a wonderful multimedia experience. And that's what you guys are paid for. No pressure, but fix it. So in terms of the last value, it's okay, I'll film before you do this, no worries. So we've done Blue Dot, putting the customer at the center. Like, who is the customer? Focus everything around them. The whole customer journey works from their perspective, not us. We're not the coders. We're just the people who are going to bring them to where they need to go. Then that next bit, the expectant nature. Like, who is the customer? Well, they're up here in terms of expectations. So how do we deliver to them? Their expectations are way further than they ever were before. So we have to go beyond their expectation into that delight space and give them more than they expect to get. And then we've just done the Phygital piece, which is the new world that we have to serve. And now here we are in the relational piece where the videos are going to work. Thank you. So in this space of relational piece, we need to move away from a transactional model where we're just serving their needs, to a relationship model where there's and you hear all the time, customer lifetime value. You hear these words thrown around a lot in boardrooms. What does that mean? It means that there's a relationship of some sort, an actual genuine relationship with the customer. And remember that even your clients, your B2B clients who hire you to do what you do, they can cut you loose at any moment. There's other people that can do what you do. And so this is the importance of building a relationship with your customer that goes beyond just a transaction. And Brené Brown has a wonderful quote that says, I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. So do does your customer, first of all, your client, feel seen, heard, and valued? And do their consumers and users, because that's what they're trying to do. So anything that we develop as software developers has to actually make people, again, as I said earlier on, feel something. And I've stopped using the word customer experience. I started to use the word customer intimacy. Customer intimacy is fostering a sense of closeness. Think about dating. You could go on a one-night stand, right? That's an experience. And you could do one every single night. You'd be exhausted, but you could. But you'd eventually run empty. Because 6 months in, there's no depth, there's no intimacy. And that's what we crave as humans, intimacy. So how do we develop a sense of intimacy for our customers then? Now, I've become fascinated by various case studies, various brands do this well, but there's one brand that does this really, really well. And it might surprise you, but here she is. Taylor Swift, I call her the queen of connection, or the queen of customer experience. Because she's built an entire brand on user-customer connection. So her relationship with her fans is fascinating. So she has spent 20 years tearing away the line between us and them, between consumer and producer, inviting them into her life, stepping into their lives. She's made it all about them. She is a perfect example of the blue dot at work. She's also a perfect example of going beyond expectations, delivering above expectations. So if you think about that Eras tour that just finished last year, why was that the biggest grossing live entertainment product that the world has ever seen? Like, why her? Why not Beyonce, and why not Madonna and Lady Gaga and Pink? They're all good. They're all talented musicians. They all sell out stadiums. But why was her one the biggest one ever? And why, when she released that into cinemas, because remember, only 5% of people who wanted to get a ticket for the Eras tour could get one. That left 95% of demand outside. And so why then, when you released that in the cinemas to feed that demand, did it become the biggest grossing cinema release ever on opening night? It took more revenue on its opening night than any other movie ever has in the world. Harry Potter, Star Wars, doesn't matter. And so when she released that then on streaming, why did it become the most streamed movie ever? Like, what's happening? And why, when she released her last album, did it become the most streamed album ever? And within 5 days, it hit the billion mark, which no release ever had. And her new album that comes out this Friday is already the most pre-saved album of all time. So everything she's done, Midas touch, everything is gold. Why? Well, it's all because she focused from the very beginning, when she was 16, on the fan, the customer. The music is part of it, but the customer, the user, if you put them at the center, you build community, you build belonging. You build tribal belonging, in fact. And so let's even just go back 5 years. Have a look at this.
There's been a relationship that's been ongoing for almost 10 years now, but it's gotten so much stronger in the last year. And that is something I'm so grateful for. I'm much more involved in their lives on a day-to-day basis on social media, so that has changed everything for me in the last year. How are you guys? Good, how are you? I realize that my life isn't normal, but the one thing that keeps...
So that's 5 years ago. 5 years ago, immersing yourself in fans, but we can keep going back. Let's go back 10 years to this one.
Your fans feel so personal about you. I mean, you're the only one I know who invites people back into your house. Do you still do that?
Yeah. I decided that I wanted to play this entire album for the fans long before it came out. I wanted it to be like this little secret society gatherings in living rooms, and so I decided to have them in my houses.
We have 89 fans waiting in the living room.
Hey, guys! Hey, guys! I want to come up with as many ways that we can spend time together and bond, because it keeps me normal. It keeps my life feeling manageable.
And this idea, she's always used this little heart hands icon. If you have Swifties in your house, you know this, right? So every Swiftie goes around all day, love you, love you, love you. And she's done this because she believes that half of this is me. This is me, my music, my videos, my concerts. And the other half is you, the fan, your world. And only the magic is created when we both come together. In fact, the Swifties go around all through their life thinking, like even this girl at the dentist is like, oh, are we doing heart hands? Yay! No, I'm trying to give you an injection. So everything is connection. Oh, I want to connect with you. And as developers, you know, we need to do that too. We need to connect. And so to finish off, I want to show you what connection. So I've been talking about user connection and the user experience all morning. And so I want to show you what it's like emotionally to connect. Because really, unless I do that, you're going to walk away with facts and not feeling. And so let's go back to that Eras tour. And staying with this metaphor and this case study, this is how Taylor Swift arrives to the beginning of the Eras tour. She's smuggled on set on a little cleaning cart, and she goes onto a hydraulic platform at the bottom, and she shoots up on that platform underneath all these kind of rose petal things, and boom, there she is. And remember, there's 70,000 fans in the arena who have been waiting for this moment. Some of them have already seen the live streams, they've seen the movie, they know how it works, and they've got a ticket. It's like the Willy Wonka Hunger Games ticket to get here, and so they're here and they're so excited. They've waited a year for it, and oh my God, the anticipation. So I'm going to show you a video, and I'm going to let you into connection, let you into the feeling of connection. So what you're going to see is three sisters from Perth, Australia. Now, this girl in the grey hoodie, I want you to watch her face as she waits for this brand, this experience. And look at her face and look at the emotions on her face. She doesn't know whether to laugh, to cry, to vomit into her hoodie sleeve, to urinate herself. No idea. And the odd time she kind of wakes up out of her emotional overwhelm and remembers she's supposed to be screaming and supposed to be excited. And she's holding her sister's hands so tightly, crushing bones is my guess. And here it comes, you know, they know, they can see all the petals folding down. And you can see in the whites of her eyes what it's like to connect. This idea that you're about to see her. And then from beneath, whoosh, Taylor's here. And the whole stadium erupt into song. She can't, nothing, she chokes completely overwhelmed by this moment. And eventually she kind of catches up and thinks, oh no, I'm supposed to be singing. And then she shares that one look with her sister that says, we're here, we made it, this is it. If you could just have 1% of that, just 1% of that connection, that's the game. The game is to connect with people. And the things that we do, again, I said it, inside the four walls of our offices, we sometimes forget we're there just writing code. But what you're doing is you're sending software out there that facilitates this kind of connection for users, for customers, for clients. And so ultimately, what we do helps people connect with each other, with themselves, with their purpose, with their business. No matter what kind of software you're running, it's helping people connect. And so that relational part is so important. Fostering some kind of sense of closeness with your client or with your customer, developing meaningful conversations around customer experience and customer intimacy, making sure that they feel seen, heard, and valued as a client or as a customer, and making sure that you're looking at customer lifetime relationships, not just transactions, pushing past. So those four pillars, making it all about them, going beyond their expectations, developing AI in a Phygital world that actually allows us, frees us up as humans to do what we can do best, and delivering those relationships. So a bit like Taylor Swift's little handholds, you too are part of that. And so it's about connecting with the user. Putting the user at the center is the key message for my opening remarks. Now, if only somebody had put all of this magnificent content in a book. Okay. As a free gift for you today, as a thank you for coming, I'd like you to take your phone out and scan that QR code for me, please. So a couple of things in there. Firstly, it's quite a visual presentation, lots of video, lots of music, lots of stories. Trust me, you're not going to remember anything next week. You just remember a goldfish and Taylor Swift. So what I've done is I've given you a written summary of that entire speech so that you can bring it back to your team, sit down and have a chat and bring some of that to life in your business. Secondly, I've got some consultancy questions in there, which I want you to sit down, preferably a week or two from now, and go through those 10 consultancy questions with your team and say, right, how are we making it around the customer? How are we Blue Dot as a business? Where can we go above the expectation? So take all the things I've said today and use those consultancy questions to actually create a 1-hour strategy session around user experience. It's all there for you. And please, I would encourage you, don't let the stuff you hear today, in fact, for the whole day here, stay in this room. Bring it back to you. I've also given you 2 free chapters of the book, because I love you. And if you do enjoy those 2 chapters, buy the book. I have kids to put through college, you know, I need it. Anyway, you have been GOTO 2025 Copenhagen. I've been Ken Hughes. Thank you very, very much.